Hello and welcome. I am Miggy the Ex-Moose and you are watching my second video on YouTube. I am an ex-Muslim, an apostate, and furthermore an ex-Moose, which is another term for ex-Muslim. In today's video, I will explain and prove with authentic sources why the Quran is man-made and not the actual word of God. Today's video is split up in 4 parts. The first part is missing verses of the Quran. The second part is proof of a different Quran. The third part is proof of numerous different Qurans. And the fourth and final part is the challenge of the Quran. I will leave the top comment pinned with the time of each part of the video, so you can easily go back and watch individually. Without further ado, here we go. Missing verses of the Quran. Yup, you read that correctly. Apparently Allah quickly changed his mind and omitted certain verses from the Quran to fit better verses. Truly an almighty God will not think twice about making mistakes the first time around. The Quran itself says in Surah Al-Baqarah, verse 106, "We do not abrogate a verse or cause it to be forgotten, except that we bring forth one better than it or similar to it. Do you not know that Allah is over all things competent?" Well, to me, a God that keeps changing his mind is probably not an intellectual stable God, but let's continue. The Quran also says in Surah An-Nahl, verse 101, "And we substitute a verse in place of a verse, and Allah is most knowing of what he sends down, and they say, 'You, O Muhammad, are but an inventor of lies,' but most of them do not know." Now, there are 2 explanations to this Quranic verse. Number 1, Allah clearly knows what he's doing when he replaces his own verses. Or the second explanation is Muhammad's own people are smart enough to call him out on his lies, like how this verse mentions, and this Quranic verse gives Muhammad an excuse for why he keeps changing God's message whenever people ask him.
You got me.
In this Sahih Bukhari hadith, Muhammad, whose one task is to receive the most important final revelations from God and convey them to the rest of humanity, used to forget the Quran. Why would Allah sabotage his important verses by making his own prophet forget them? The whole idea of testing falls apart right here. Either Allah is incompetent or he doesn't exist. When you make up stuff out of nowhere, you're bound to forget them eventually. According to this Sahih Bukhari hadith, Muhammad, the last prophet of Islam, never attempted to write down the Quran. It apparently never came across his mind until after his death. And according to this Sahih Bukhari hadith, in the same year as Muhammad's death, there was a war between the Muslims led by Abu Bakr and against Musaylimah, a self-proclaimed prophet from the neighboring Arab tribe. This was called the Battle of Yamama. And at this time, there was no such thing as a complete Quran, like what we have today. Instead, there were dozens of manuscripts scattered all across Arabia that were written on bones, animal hide, and leaves. After this battle, Abu Bakr and Umar decided to gather and collect every fragment of the Quran and compile it in one single book, since they realized that during this battle, a large number of Muslims that memorized the Quran had died. In this hadith, it says, when they wrote down the Quran, some verses were found with one person only. In this Sahih Muslim hadith, it says the companions of Muhammad used to recite a surah that was as long as Surah At-Tawbah, and Surah At-Tawbah is already 129 verses long. So basically a whole chapter or surah of the Quran is missing. The companions, however, did remember the gist of it, and that the surah was about a hypothetical situation along the lines that if the son of Adam was presented 2 valleys full of riches, he would still long for a 3rd valley full of riches. In this Sahih Muslim hadith, it says another chapter or surah is missing from the Quran, which is one of the musabihat. Musabihat or surahs that begin with Subhana, Sabaya, and Yasabuhu. There are a total of 5 surahs like these in the Quran, and the average length is 20 verses, with the shortest surah having 11 verses. So basically, a minimum of 11 verses are missing from the Quran. This missing chapter talked about those who don't practice what they preach, and that their necks will be a witness against them on the day of resurrection. According to the Sahih Muslim hadith, It says, before Muhammad died, there used to be verses of breastfeeding in the Quran. It said that 10 clear sucklings will make the marriage unlawful, but then it was later abrogated or changed to 5 sucklings. In this Sahih Muslim hadith, it says that the punishment for adultery is stoning, and that it was originally found in the Quran, but later omitted as time passed on. And in this Hasan hadith, which is below Sahih, but still above Da'if and Ma'du hadiths, it says that the verse of stoning and of breastfeeding an adult 10 times were revealed, and that they were under Aisha's pillow. But when Muhammad died, a sheep came in and ate it. Now, if we stick with the most authentic Sahih hadiths and ignore the other ones, there are 129 missing verses from 2 valleys, plus a minimum of 11 verses from the 2nd chapter, which talked about not practicing what you preach, plus 1 verse for stoning and 1 verse for suckling. In the end, we get a grand total of at least 142 verses of the Quran that were lost.
Because of its drawings, because of the art historical context, you can date this Quran very precisely to the time of Al-Walid. This is the reign between 705 and 715.
The oldest datable Quran in the world, created some 70 years after the death of the Prophet. From the potato sacks, Puyin identified fragments from nearly 1,000 different Qurans. Comparisons between them and the standard Cairo text in use today are startling. These early texts are written in a kind of shorthand with no vowel markings or distinguishing dots, which means that individual words can have up to 30 different meanings.
30 more ways to play mind gymnastics.
The sheer existence of so many different possible readings would suggest that this text wasn't passed down word for word. The text isn't as stable as it seems in the Cairo version.
There was another important discovery amongst the Sana fragments. The application of simple forensic techniques revealed earlier texts that had been washed off and overwritten. Although the hidden text revealed no contradictory meanings, words had been changed, verses and whole chapters rearranged.
It suggests, in fact, that the Quran was not a single product, a single entity that was fixed by 650, but actually developed much, much later, hence the overlaying of texts of written materials.
We accept that there is a diversity from the very beginning on very marginal things. It's not changing first the central message of the Quran, the pillars of our faith.
Okay, but you're still admitting that the Quran has been changed and has not remained the same for over 1400 years. And Allah states plainly on several occasions that no one can alter or change His words, and that only He, Allah, preserves and protects His words. Allah literally promises to protect the Quran from word changes via human beings, since apparently He didn't do it right the first couple of times with the Torah and Bible. Here's what Allah says in the Quran, Surah Al-An'am, verse 34. Indeed, many messengers have been rejected before you, but they stood patient against their rejection, and they were persecuted until our help came to them. No one can change the words of Allah, and of course, some accounts of the messengers have already come to you. Surah Al-An'am, verse 115. The word of your Lord is perfect in truth and justice. None is there to change His words, and He is all-hearing, all-knowing. Surah Al-Hijr, verse 9. We ourselves have sent down the zikr, and we are there to protect it. Surah Al-Kahf, verse 27. And recite what has been revealed to you of the book of your Lord. There is no one to change His words, and you will never find a refuge beside Him.
In order to understand it correctly, we need a fundamentally new interpretation and reading of the Quran.
Dr. Marcus Gross helped to translate the book from its original German into English and is willing openly to express the author's views.
A quarter or a fifth of the Quran contains unintelligible words or words which don't make real sense. That number can be vastly reduced with a knowledge of Syriac to, let's say, 5%.
But at the time of Muhammad, Syro-Aramaic was the major written and cultural language of the whole region. Written Arabic was in its infancy.
There are pre-Islamic inscriptions in Arabic, very short texts, but the first real book written in Arabic is the Quran.
But you're saying the Quran is written in two languages.
In many areas in the world, languages mix constantly, all the time. To make it understandable to a speaker of English, you have to go back about 1,000 years. Imagine the Anglo-Saxon peasant talking to his master, who was a Norman and spoke a mixed language of French and an Anglo-Saxon. And you could only understand that mixed language with a knowledge of both.
Muslim scholars of the past had the confidence to acknowledge foreign words in the Quran. In the 10th century, Al-Tabari, one of the most respected commentators, identified Hebrew, Latin, Greek, Persian, Abyssinian, and Syriac words. The difference, though, is that Luxembourg is claiming new meanings that have never been suggested before. How can one German professor challenge the collective judgment of more than 1 billion people, and on what basis? What method does he use?
Whenever I try to find a solution for an unclear passage, the first step is to try to find an overlooked meaning of an Arabic word which is not used today, but which can be found in old dictionaries, something that the commentators didn't consider. Only if that is not possible, I take into consideration the meaning of the root, of the corresponding root in Syriac, or a possible misreading. Misreading in this case means that undotted text was dotted wrongly. Then there's also the possibility that a Syriac letter was by mistake written within an Arabic text.
Using these methods, Luxembourg examined some of the most obscure passages of the Quran. After Mary has given birth to Jesus, in the Arabic Quran, the archangel says to her, "Be not sad, your Lord has placed a little river beneath you." In Luxembourg's version, "Be not sad, your Lord has made your delivery legitimate." And there are other highly contentious examples. God's command to a skeptic in Arabic, "Look at your food and drink, look at your ass," becomes "Look at your condition and look at your overall state." At the end of the world, the earth steps forward in Arabic. In Syriac, the earth splits open.
One example is the veil. The Quranic verse adduced to prove their position talked about humur, which had to be beaten on the pockets. The sentence was a bit obscure. It's usually rendered that it means cover your head and your cleavage. And if you have a look at the chador, the veil in Iran, for example, that's exactly what is covered. But with my Syriac interpretation of the verse, my translation is, put your belt around your hips. And the belt was a sign of chastity, also especially used by monks. So that makes it much more meaningful. There is one passage in the Quran dealing with the Huris, in which it says, وَزَوَجْنَاهُمْ بِحُورٍ عِينٍ. We have paired them with dark, wide-eyed maidens. That is the traditional understanding of this verse. If you put the dots on the undotted text a little bit differently, what comes out is, we will make you comfortable under white, crystal clear grapes.
For the suicide bomber, then, not the prospect of 72 virgins in paradise, but in Luxembourg's interpretation, a modest bunch of grapes. This 5th century fresco in an Egyptian monastery depicts the archangels receiving souls in paradise. Each archangel holds a grape in one hand, and in the other cradles the departed souls, who are refreshed with bunches of grapes. The grape motif is repeated in the vestments of the priests of the Syrian Orthodox Church, all relating back to Christ's promise to his disciples at the Last Supper that he will not drink again of the fruit of the vine until he is reunited with them in his Father's kingdom.
Okay, now, I know some of you Muslims are saying,
But brother, that is only one example of a different Quran, and it's probably a fake documentary created by a Zionist Jew.
Alright, so here's the ultimate proof of multiple different versions of the Quran that aren't old and are still being reproduced right here today in the 21st century.
And every Muslim is told this, that there is only one Quran. There has only ever been one Quran. And this Quran is uncreated. It all has always existed in heaven. Surah 85, ayah 22 refers to this. It was sent down to, they believe, the Prophet named Muhammad between 610 and 632, 22 years. And they've been told that though it was not written at that time, it was Uthman, the third caliph, then who was given the responsibility to rewrite the Quran in the Qurayshi dialect. But we get that from Sahih Bukhari. Sahih Bukhari, volume 6, hadith number 5.9 and 5.10. In 5.9, it refers to the fact that Zayd ibn Thabit, along with three others, Zubair, Alas, and Harith, were given the responsibility to rewrite the Quran.
Yes.
Very important that was therefore when the Quran was written down. And then Uthman did a very curious thing.
Uthman ordered all other written materials to be burned.
Burned.
Yeah.
Why would you burn something?
Well, you wouldn't want people to see what people were disagreeing with.
Obviously, these were disagreements. If this was just dialogical or dialectical differences or different readings, then you wouldn't need to burn them, would you?
Yeah.
So obviously must be one reading that we're talking about here. Nonetheless, he then took the one that the canonized one that Zayd ibn Thabit compiled, and he took that one and he sent it to all the different provinces. Now, we have a problem with that a little bit because we have found that there are more than just one province, aren't there? There's quite a few. What does, when it says to every province, how many provinces existed?
So when we look back, we see in 7th century there are 9 provinces.
Let me just list them all to you. You have Basra, you have Baghdad, you have Damascus, you have Jerusalem, you have Cairo, you have Alexandria, you have Aden, then you have Herat and Nishapur.
So you've got 9 cities.
I've got 9 that I count there, so it's not 4, it's not 5, it's not 6, it's not 7, it's not 8. It is 9 provinces that they were sent to. That's quite a few provinces. And obviously, with the question we've asked many years, and we've done this also at the Speaker's Corner, if there are 9 of them that were sent out just 1,400 years ago, we should be able to find those 9. We can't find them, can we?
Yes, we should have 9 complete copy of the Quran, written down, complete, perfect, from 9 different cities.
We can't even find
one. But today
one.
we don't have anything.
Not from the mid-7th century that is complete. And that is exactly like the Quran that we have today.
In 650s, there is only one, like the Quran is written down as one.
In one form.
One perfect
So when you
form.
write it down, there's not many ways to. I mean, you can read it by different dialectical readings, but we're talking about consonantal text form, the razm. The razm is the word letter by letter by letter by letter by letter. There's only one way to write that letter.
Yeah.
Now, there are many different ways to pronounce it. You're right. When you read it, you can pronounce it different ways. Really, there is one way of writing it. There are many different ways of reading it.
Examples.
So the examples we're going to look at now come from not just one Quran, not just 2 Qurans, not just 3 Qurans. You've been able to find 26 Qurans today in Arabic around the Arabic-speaking world. What cities did you go to find these Qurans?
You can easily find these Qurans in North Africa, in Yemen, in Lebanon, in Jordan, in Sudan.
Okay.
So it is accessible for everyone to go and buy.
They're in North Africa and in the Middle East.
Yeah.
And the Qurans you have here are from Jordan, they're from Lebanon, and they're from North Africa.
Yemen and Sudan.
Yemen and Sudan. Okay, so these are the ones that you have been able to collect. We may even find different one more on top of this. We'll still keep looking.
Yes.
We know that other groups have found 17. There are, in Jordan alone, we understand there are 22 different Arabic Qurans. And there you can see, these are the ones you've collected so far. And you're now going through them. It's going to take years for you to get all the way through.
Since we've got 26 of them, we haven't able to look at all of them. So let's start with the...
And while she's getting this down, for those who are watching, one of the biggest anger yesterday at the corner, all the Muslims that were there of the vast majority were Arab speakers. And what bothered them, as we opened up these different Qurans, and we just had to open up any page, almost any Quran, we would find what we call manuscript variants. These are consonantal variants, not vowelization, not reading differences, not ways of reading it differently. These are actually written differences between each Quran, and primarily between this Quran. Now, let's explain. This is the Hafs Quran.
This is the Hafs Quran, which has been canonized in 1924, and this is accessible to everyone. So
Now,
you can
say the
buy
date again, 1924. You're saying that this book was finalized, was written down in its final form in 1924 at Al-Azhar University in Cairo, in Egypt. That means it's less than 100 years old. It's not even 100 years old. But this has now become they canonized. This has become the official Quran by the Ibn Saud family in Saudi Arabia. That was done in 1987. So many people now know it as the Fard Quran. Even though we know it as Hafs, it is also referred to as the Ibn Saud or the Fard Quran, because it is Ibn Fard who is the one who actually gave the jurisdiction that is the official text. Now, that's the text that we use here in Britain, is it not? We're not looking at the translation. We want to look at the Arabic. Now, what have you found by looking at the Arabic? And you have gone through this with your Arabic speakers. So you've used native Arabic speakers who also teach Arabic. You asked them to compare
the certain
verses with verse. Let's go and let's look at some of them. Let's just do the Hafs, which is very popular in all of Middle East. It's also popular in Britain. And the Warsh, which is very popular in North Africa. The Warsh is the one you'll find in North Africa. And let's start with what? Surah 2, verse 10. Okay, right at the very beginning. Now, in Surah 2, verse 10, it says, they lie, yakdibuna. So mine is yakdibuna. What does yours say?
And I've got the Welsh version in my hand. In this one, it says, yukadibuna, which means they were lied to, or you can also translate they deny.
So in my version, the Hafs, they lie is what it says. That's yakdibuna. But in your version, the Warsh here, it was yukadibuna, which is they were lied to or they deny. We're putting this up on the screen for your Arab readers so you can read where they are. You will see it is very different. It is quite different because the diacritical marks and the vowelization are very much different. Now you're getting another Quran. So this is the Warsh. Now we're going to the Ru. It's a completely different Quran, and it's known as the Ru Quran. And guard yourself against a day when no soul will in aught avail another, nor will intercession be accepted. Now the word here is yukbal. But that is the wrong grammar because that is male. It should not be male. It should be female here. Or tukbal instead of yukbal.
Yes.
So it is corrected.
Yes. Tukbal is for the context of the female.
All right.
Yukbal is the context of the male. So if you read the verse, it's context of the female. So Hafs version got it wrong as a grammatical sense.
Wrong.
But Ruh version of the Quran gets it correct.
Corrects it and gets it correct. Now, let's go to Surah 2, Ayah 125. Here you have, in the Hafs version, etakizu. Etakizu, which means to take. Remember, we made the house a place of assembly for man and a place of safety. And take ye the station of Abraham. What does yours say in the Warsh?
Okay. Etakhazu.
So from etakizu, it's been changed to etakazu.
Which changed the meaning of the word, which is have taken instead of take. So it is suddenly like different tense and different word.
And take ye the station of Abraham is changed to and have taken ye.
Yes.
So there's a completely different meaning to the text. It
Yes.
changes the tense of the whole text. Now let's continue on. Let's go to verse 132. The reference is Abraham enjoined his son, and the word is wawasa. Wawasa. What does it say in the Warsh?
Okay, in Welsh it is as wa'awsa.
Wa'awsa. Okay.
So, in Welsh version of the Quran it says, and Ibrahim instructed his son.
So here you have an inclusion, an interjection in the warsh of an aleph.
Yes.
An aleph is put between the two waws.
Yes.
That's an entirely different, I mean, that's a consonantal difference right there. They've imported a consonantal difference, an aleph. Wawasa, enjoined, has been changed to wa'ausa, instructed, in verse 132. In Surah 2, ayah 140, in my Hafs version, it says takuluna. So you say, takuluna, you say.
Okay. In Walsh version of the Quran, it says yakulun.
From
Yakuluna.
takuluna, it's yakuluna.
Yes.
That makes it third person plural.
Yes.
They say.
Yes. Do they say that Abraham and Ishmael and Isaac and Jacob?
So it's even a question. Do you say? So here is do you say been changed to third person plural to do they say. So
Yes.
that has a hugely different, because it's they plural versus you singular. Let's go to Surah 2, ayah 214. Now in the Hafs, it says that they said hatta yukula. That's the past tense. That they said hatta yukula.
In Walsh version, it is hatta yakulu, which means is until they say.
So yakula is changed to yakulu.
Yes.
And I hope you're seeing that on the screen. And those of you who speak Arabic, read it. You will see these are very different. That changes the meaning, either whether it happened or it will happen. Here we're going to look at Hafs versus Abu Harith al-Duri al-Kissa and also Abu Amr al-Ala. So we're going to actually look at two al-Duris because al-Duri contradicts himself in verse 219. Fascinating. The word is kabir, great. In the al-Kissa and Abu Harith and al-Duri, it's kathir. There's al-Duri saying that here is a light or a lot of sin. In them is a lot of sin and benefit for people. That is also repeated in Abu Harith. He says al-Kathir. In them is a lot of sin. So here you have 1, 2, 3, 4 Qurans that have al-Kathir, a lot of sin. In the Hafs, you have it is great or big. And then al-Duri contradicts himself in another place, and he puts it back to kabir, a big sin. So is it a big sin, which means a size of sin, or is it a lot of sin, which means numerically many sins?
And according to Walsh, it is big sin, so kabir. Okay?
Kabir. And that would agree with the Hafs.
Yes. And this is al-Duri Quran, but this is the one which he disagree with Susi. Okay? And in this one, it is kabir, again, big sin.
Big sin.
Okay? It's agree with the Walsh.
Warsh and the Hafs.
Okay?
Then we're going to get to the other one, and here we get to one that disagrees.
So, and then in here, I've got Abu Harith, which al-Duri is disagreeing with. In here, it's Surah 219. It is the katir, so a lot of sin.
So there it's a lot of sin, which means many sins.
Yeah.
And the other one, it's big, means a great sin.
Yeah.
That has completely different meanings.
I've got another Quran, which is Abu Amir ibn Alala al-Duri. In this one, Surah 2 verse 219 is kabir, again big.
Big again?
Yeah. And then,
So that's al-Duri and al-Allah.
yeah. And then I've got another one. This is Al-Qasar Abu Hadith, what al-Duri is disagreeing with.
Oh, here's al-Duri disagreeing with himself.
Yes. In Surah 2 verse 219, the word used is katir, which
Katir.
is a lot.
So that's a different word. So al-Duri here says big, but here he says a lot.
Yes.
A big sin versus a lot of sin.
Yeah.
That changes the meaning
I
completely.
guess that's because al-Duri is the student of two different teachers and from two different locations. And in his readings, according to Islamic tradition, one of them is just a great sin, other one is a lot of sin.
So the great sin, al-Duri says that when he's with al-Allah, but when he's with al-Qissa, he then puts it to a lot of sin. Fascinating. So here you have even a student disagreeing with himself, depending on what teacher he is with. Now, let's go to Surah 2, 271. The Hafs is yukafir. So here it is yukafir, he. He will remove from some of your misdeeds. He will remove from you some of your evil. What does it say in your...
Okay, I am holding right now Al-Duri version of the Quran is mukaffir, we.
It is nu kafir. It should be with a nun, because
Yes,
there's a
with
nun
an.
there.
Yeah.
Nu kafir, that is we.
Yes, we will remove.
We will
from
remove.
some of
So
the sin.
in the Hafs, it is yukafir, which
Yeah.
is he will remove. In the Al-Duri, from Al-Lala, it
Yeah.
is nu kafir, we will remove. What
Yeah.
about Al-Susi?
Let me get that one.
While she's looking at that, can you see this changes from some he? Who is he talking about here? Is this God who will remove it? To we. Can we remove sin? Are we able to do so? Unless God is plural. I doubt if God is plural. So it must be, this is a contradiction. So that has theological implications.
Yeah.
What does it say in Al-Susi?
Nukaffar, again, we will remove some of your sin, some of your mistakes.
Nukafir.
Nukaffir.
Sorry, Nukafir. So that's like what Al-Duri says.
Yes.
So Al-Susi agrees with Al-Duri and also Al-Ala. They say that we will remove from some sins of your
Yes,
misdeeds.
but Hafs disagree with
Wow,
them.
wow,
Hafs
wow,
says
wow.
he will remove.
But can you see, this is not simple different readings. These are completely different consonantal
Yeah.
texts. More than that, these consonantal texts change the meaning completely from
yeah.
someone he, which I assume is God, to we, which means us. We can remove the sins. And now we're getting into whether they were killed or they fought. 146. Oh dear, here we go. The prophets, according to my Hafs, it is katala. There it is, katala.
And
That means they fought. The prophets fought.
okay, I've got Al-Bazi version. Okay, Surah 3 verse 146 is kutala.
Kutala, wait a minute.
Kutala.
That means
Which
they were killed.
They were killed. So it talks about the prophets. It talks about prophets were killed.
So in the Hafs version, the prophets just fought.
Yeah.
They lived. Looks like they didn't die.
Yeah, and in the full sentence it will be how many prophets with him were killed. And then we've got the same problem with the Warsh Quran. Warsh Quran, I've got Al-Bazi Quran. They are agreeing with one another that were killed, but Hafs Quran is disagreeing with them. It's fought, past tense for the fight.
Huge difference. Now you can't say that's just a reading difference. That is a consonantal difference,
Yeah.
which changes the meaning, changes the story, and changes the implication of what happened to those
Yeah.
prophets. Did they die or did they live? Surah 21, Ayah 4. And Surah 21, Ayah 4. In the Hafs version, it has kala. Now kala means he said. So
Kul.
skul here, kala here, which means the prophet said. So here the prophet speaking.
Yeah.
Kul, say. That's
Yeah,
God
that's
speaking.
God is speaking.
So
Yeah.
here God is speaking in the Warsh, and Prophet Muhammad is speaking, or whoever the prophet is, may not be Muhammad. In the Hafs, it's the prophet speaking.
Yeah.
Here, man speaking, God speaking. Matt, that's
Which one is correct?
talk about theological difficulties there. I leave that with you Muslims. You've got two different Qurans bringing out a completely different theological implication. Is God speaking or is man speaking in Surah 21, Ayah 4? We continue on, Surah 28, Ayah 48. And here you have, fascinating, the word in Hafs is sihrani, two works of magic. They said, two works of magic supporting each other, and indeed we are in both disbelievers. So two works of magic, sihrani. What does it say in the Warsh?
Warsh version of the Quran, chapter 28, verse 48, says Sahirana.
Sahirani. So from sihrani, it's sahirani.
Which means two magicians.
Oh, hold on a minute.
So in this sentence, it is, they said two magicians are supporting each other.
And in the Hafs, it says that two works of magic are supporting each other. So is it an act or is it a person?
Yeah.
Folks, this changes the meaning quite a bit. You can see these are typical, common human errors. God would not make mistakes like this. Now we move on to Surah 34, Ayah 17.
Read from here.
We awarded them because of their ingratitude. Punish we ever any save the ingrates. Punish we. So we punish. So this is Nugazia. Nugazia is we punish.
Okay. In Warsh version of the Quran is Yugaza,
Yugaza.
which means gets punished.
So here we do the punishment to you receiving the punishment. One is doing the action, one is receiving the action.
Yes, in Walsh 1, you are the one who is receiving the action, punishment.
I would prefer the Hafs, so thank you, so that I'm giving it. In Surah 4, in Surah 1, Ayah 4, in the Hafs Quran, it is Malik in the Hafs.
Hafs,
Let me
yes.
get that correct.
It's in the Walsh version, it is without alif, it's Malik.
That's right, Malik.
Okay, so in Walsh translation, it is a king. In the Hafs translation, it is the master or owner of the day. Arabic Bible, there is a distinction between Malik and Malik. Even though Muslims come say, oh, it doesn't matter stuff, but actually it does matter. And in the Bible, we put it in different form, how it's supposed to be. Sadly,
in the Quran
fails to do that in different formats.
Okay. To save time,
Yeah.
I'm going to do a rendition. I'm just going to go through a summary of everything we've gone through. Where's your warsh? Let's just do between the Hafs and the warsh.
Okay.
So let's do between these two. Let's just look at what we now have found between just these two books.
Yeah.
Now, Hatun, we have 26 books here.
Yeah.
You haven't had time to go through all of this yet. Even the team in Melbourne hasn't had time to go through all of these. You've just had time really to go through Hafs and Warsh.
Yeah.
And this is what you have found just between these two. Once you have gone and checked it with an Arab speaker and an Arab teacher, this is what they have showed you. Surah 1, Ayah 4, owner of the day, Maliki. In your case?
It's the king of the day.
Surah 2, Ayah 10, in the Hafs, they lie, Yadibuna.
In verse 1, it is they were lied to. It's yukadhibuna.
Yukadibuna, okay? In Surah 2, Ayah 58, we give mercy, which is nakfir.
In Welsh version, it is yaghfur, he gives mercy.
So from we to he.
Yeah.
In Surah 2, Ayah 125, you should take. In the Warsh, it is what?
They have taken.
In Surah 2, Ayah 132, and Ibrahim enjoined on his sons, wawasa, in the Warsh.
It's in the Welsh one, it's wa'afsa, it is, and Ibrahim instructed his sons.
In Surah 2, Ayah 140, in the Hafs version, you say, takuluna changes to?
Yakuluna.
Okay, instead of takuluna, it becomes yakuluna.
Yakuluna, they say.
They say. In Surah 2, Ayah 184, a redemption by feeding a poor man, ta'amu miskinin becomes?
Redemption by feeding poor man. So it comes in a group format. Ta'ami masakina.
So from one man to
a group of
men.
Yeah.
In Surah 2, Ayah 214, in the Hafs, it says, so that they said, hatta yakula.
Okay. In Welsh version is hatta yakulu.
Hatta yakulu.
Until they said.
So they said becomes until they said. In Surah 2, Ayah 259, we shall raise up nun shizuha.
Versus nun suruhna.
Nun shiruha.
We shall make alive.
So from nun shizuha becomes nun shiruha. We shall make alive instead we shall raise up. That's quite a bit different. Holding someone up versus bringing them back to life. Surah 3, Ayah 81. I give you ataytukum.
Ataynakum, verse which means we give you.
So from I give you, comes we give you. That's a hugely different reference point there. Surah 3, Ayah 133. And hasten to, wasari'u becomes?
Sa'ariu, hasten to.
Hasten to. And hasten to becomes just hasten to. Surah 3, Ayah 146. The prophets fought, katala in Hafs becomes?
Kutila, were killed.
Were killed. So they either fought or they died. I will go with the Hafs on that one, if I was a prophet. Surah 4, Ayah 152. He gives them, yutihim becomes nuktihimu. We give them. So is it he giving them or we giving them? Yeah. Oh, I love that. That's quite a bit difference right there. In Surah 5, Ayah 54. Yartada, turn back, becomes in Warsh.
Yartadit, which is in order form.
in an order from yatardid. You're right. So Surah 21, Ayah 4. Kala, he said, my Lord knows, becomes
Kul, my Lord, say my Lord knows.
say. It's God speaking. It's imperative. Only God speaks like that. Surah 28, Ayah 48. Two works of magic, sihrani becomes
Saharin.
sahirani.
Two magicians.
So, two works of magic becomes two men of magic. Surah 34, Ayah 17. We punish Nugazia.
Yugaza, which becomes gets punished.
So we do it or you get punished.
Yeah.
I'd rather be the Hafs. In every case, the Hafs has it better for me if I was a prophet or if I was someone doing the punishment or if I was God, obviously. Surah 91, Ayah 15. And for him no fear. Wala yakufu.
Becomes falaya kufu. Therefore, for him no fear.
Wala yakafu. Well, therefore, for him no fear.
Yes.
Now, we're just going through a few of these because it's going to take us all day.
Yeah.
Because how many have you found just between these two books?
If you compare Hafs version of the Quran versus Warsh version of the Quran, you can easily come up over 1,300.
You have already found
I counted
1,300.
I counted them.
You can, and you're not even finished yet. There'll be others
So,
that
and
you're
I've
yet to
got
find.
I've got Walsh version of the Quran, which is written by different students, they are disagreeing with one another. So this is like general Walsh, and then we've got another two Qurans different from.
So you have three different renditions of the Warsh Quran.
Yes.
How many have you found amongst the Hafs? Because we've only heard there's only one Hafs.
There are, I think we've got 6 Hafs, I think.
So 6 different Hafs.
Yeah.
Not just one, not just 2, not just 3, 6 different Hafs versions.
Yes, there are a couple of verses or vocabularies doesn't change anything. We don't even need to talk about them. But there are over 1,300 between Hafs and Walsh version. They changed the meaning
Just
of
this
the
Warsh
sentence.
and that Hafs.
Yes.
Because there are 6 of these and there's another 3 of that.
Yes.
You're only looking at one of them versus one of the 6.
Yes.
And you found already 1,300 differences. And these are consonantal differences. These change the meaning, as you have seen. That's why you went through it. Now, just hand me any one of those up there. In fact, why don't you give me a few of them? Let me just take this. And when you open it up, I'm just going to open up to any given page.
That's the wrong side.
Make sure it's the right side up. And I'm just going to show the camera here. I did this on the corner yesterday, and boy, the Muslims got angry. If you just take
Okay, let me just tell you what Quran you are holding right now. You are holding the Quran which has been sent to Mecca, Abdullah ibn bin Shayd, and this is by Ibn Kathir students is Al-Bazi, and in here we are seeing what Al-Bazi write. Also on the red writings, we are seeing what the Kumbul, who was the other student of Ibn Kathir, disagrees with.
Okay, so every time you see a red word, I can open up almost any page. There's a red word. I can open up another page. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 red words. These are where the students have disagreed with the teacher.
Yes.
These are different words. These are what we call manuscript variants.
So students are disagreeing with one another.
Even with
They
each
are
other.
learning from one teacher. They are disagreeing with one another.
And in each case, you can see on almost every page, this is just one example of where we can find this. We leave this with you. This has been a good time to unpack what we did on yesterday. Go up and look at both of them. Understand why Muslims do get angry. And Muslims, if you do get angry and you now are starting to have doubt about your Quran, don't get angry with us. Get angry with your scholars. Get angry with the imams who have been telling you week after week, month after month, year after year, the Quran has never changed. It is the same Quran we have today as in heaven that was revealed through to the Prophet Muhammad by the angel Gabriel. That is not true. Not after today. You can't say that anymore.
Now, that video is pretty long, but I think we all get the message and are now 100% certain that there are numerous copies of the Quran which have different words and meanings. That video was by P. Fander Films. Link to their channel is in the description. The Quran has many places where it challenges people to produce a surah like it. For example, in chapter 10, verses 37 to 38, chapter 2, verse 23, and chapter 52, verse 33 to 34. And in Surah Al-Isra, Allah says, if mankind and the jinn gathered in order to produce the like of this Quran, they could not produce the like of it, even if they were to each other assistance. Now, that's a pretty bold statement. There are currently 7.6 billion humans alive right now, and that's not counting the jinn or supernatural demons. I'm pretty sure if 7.6 billion humans got together, they could easily recreate something like it. What if I could tell you that we don't need billions of people?
Here is just one individual who recreated his own surah that is similar to the Quran.
Surah Fa-Qaf.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم فقاف إنا خلقنا الدجاج خلقا وسلقنا البعيد سلقا وأطلقنا مع الرعد برقا وجعلنا الجو طلقا فمن يكفر بآياتنا شنقناه شنقا ثم خلقناه خلقا ومن يترك باب فاسقة طرقا ويفعل في بيتها فسقا حرقناه في النار حرقا إن عذابنا هو الأبقى وإن عدونا هو الأشقى فلا أقسم ببريق الدينار ولا أقسم بنحيق الحمار إني أنا الله الخالق القهار فأطيعوني ولا تكونوا من الكفار واتقوا يوم لا ينفع فيه درهم ولا دولار يوم يقذف بالكفار في النار يوم يقذف بالكفار في النار فلا يستطيعون صبرا وما لهم من فرار أما الذين اتقوا ربهم فإنهم هم الأخيار لهم جنات تجري من تحتها الأنهار وصنادق ويسكي وراقصات بلا خمار صدق الله العظيم.
This is not Quran. This is a surah like it.
If you played this to non-Arab Muslims, they would most likely listen to it and cry from ignorant spiritual bliss. The intention was not to mock, but to show how similar normal human language can sound to the Quran. The Quran challenges us by saying that it is impossible to recreate something like it, but can you really tell the difference between human speech and Allah's speech? In the end, it's not really a challenge, but a taunt. There's no objective criteria that are explicitly set out in the Quran that we could measure and decide it unambiguously. It's a subjective criteria. Any Muslim that reads the Quran can pick any criteria they want and any way to measure those criteria. So they decide whether they think the challenge was won.
I should let you know that there are way more examples of man-made surahs out there like this. Even the Arabic poems in pre-Islamic Arabia are more impressive than today's Quranic verses. They were so famous among the people that they were hung on the Kaaba for the pagan worshippers to admire. There are even some speculations that Muhammad plagiarized poems during his time to use for his Quran. But if you want to listen to another man-made surah, the third video on my channel is Surah Great Atheism, which I highly recommend you check out after this video.
The Satanic Verses. According to archaeological records, before Islam, Allah was known as the Sky God in pre-Islamic Arabia, and he had 3 daughters that were worshipped. In the Quran, there is an incident known as the Satanic Verses, where Iblis, the enemy of God, whispers false verses to Muhammad precisely after he was reciting chapter 53, verses 19 and 20, which made it look like Muhammad was praising the pagan gods Allat, Manat, and Al-Uzza to please the leaders of the Quraysh tribe and win their side over to Islam,
since they didn't want to stop worshipping their pagan gods to worship only one god. When Muhammad's followers heard of this, they got angry and told Muhammad that they thought they were only worshipping one god, Allah, and not his 3 daughters. Right after this outcry, Muhammad, at his most convenient time, receives commands from Allah through Angel Jibreel to delete those verses as well as replace them with new verses 53:21 and 53:22.
Now, Iblis is a jinn, a supernatural demon or spirit that is made of fire. Like human beings, he has free will. And according to the Quran, no one, not even Muhammad, realized that these verses did not come from Allah, which means Iblis, who himself is a jinn, was able to produce verses that rival the Quran. Therefore, the Quran challenge has been defeated already for over 1400 years. In conclusion, we learned that the Quran is missing chapters and verses, and it seems Allah, the Almighty God of Islam, did not keep his promise of protecting the Quran from human change like he said he would, since there are countless versions of the Quran right here in the 21st century. And we learned that it is possible to recreate surahs that are similar to the Quran. My next video will be on Muhammad and his hidden schizophrenia. I hope you all stay tuned for that entertaining video. As usual, I will provide sources to my arguments so you can go check for yourself. Please subscribe to this YouTube channel, share this video, comment below if you agree or you disagree with me. But please keep it clean and respectful. Remember, insults are the arguments employed by those who are in the wrong. And if you are a Muslim watching this who feels that I have offended you and hurt your feelings,
these are facts, and facts don't care about your feelings. All the whining, well, nobody cares.
and if you feel it's about damn time an ex-Muslim is posting videos online about his former religion so humanity can progress without the shackles, then please sponsor me however little you can afford to on Patreon so that I can dedicate more time to this cause and pump more quality videos like this weekly. Link to that is in the description below. Till next time, and let the truth set you free.